The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, Children's Health Defense. Today is Monday, June 23rd, 2025, and I'm delighted to have as our first guest Scott Schara, father of Grace Schara, who died in a hospital. And we're here to talk about the jury's decision that concluded in the trial that concluded last week, finding in favor of the defendants, the doctors, nurses, and hospitals across the board. We're also that's going to be followed by my interview with Dr. Reiner Fuellmich's lawyer, Katja Vermeer, and interpreter Masha Orel. Reiner Fuellmich has been an advocate about COVID, a very important one in Germany, and is currently in prison. And that will be followed by a segment of Mothers to Be. So I'm excited about the program and really delighted to welcome Scott Schara back to CHD TV. Scott, thank you for coming.
So glad to be here.
Tell us what happened, Scott, briefly. We all were watching the trial. We covered it here on CHD TV. There were some extraordinary segments showing your experts and showing comments from your lead attorney, Warner Mendenhall, that suggested to many of us that, in fact, the jury would find that there had been medical battery, wrongful death, lack of informed consent, and illegal do not resuscitate order. And yet we understand that the jury found in favor of defendants. So tell us how that happened. What happened?
Well, how, that's, I can say what, and then I'll attempt to cover how. So what happened is we had 4 claims. We started with 5 claims, 4 ended up going to the jury. We started with wrongful death, medical malpractice, lack of informed consent, medical battery, and a declaratory judgment for the illegal do not resuscitate order. The battery was dismissed before the case went to the jury. The judge held the battery open through the entire trial because he wanted to wait for all the evidence. Ultimately, he dismissed the battery because an element of battery is consent. And he said, just by the fact that we were in the hospital, we were giving consent. And we showed on the last day, my last testimony, we showed that the consent document was even a fraud because they claimed that Grace, my daughter Grace with Down syndrome, orally approved the general consent document. Think about that, Mary. That was, roughly 20 minutes we're in the emergency room and they said that Grace orally approved the general consent. So obviously a fraudulent document submitted as part of the medical records after the fact. We thought that would be enough to convince the judge to keep the battery claim alive, but he said that we consented simply because of being in the hospital. Big picture relative to the battery, we invested a lot of time on that. There's a number of public filings now that other attorneys can see how we pled the battery, and it can be used as a model going forward. Sure. So then, the 4 claims that went to the jury, they sided with Ascension Hospital across the board, less 1 juror. So there's 12 jurors, 1 of them dissented, which represents 8%. And, as I look at it, you said, well, how did this even happen? I mean, I thought we had a better case, certainly a better team. We were way better prepared. And, so it's hard for me to grasp, sitting there in the courtroom for 3 weeks, working with these 4 attorneys for literally 2 years and intensely for a couple of months prior to the trial. So it's hard for me to grasp losing, but in this system is not designed for the plaintiff. And I'll give you a specific example of that in a moment. But, what I believe is the case is that, if the average age of the juror, for example, is 50 years, they've got 50 years of programming. So they're programmed to trust the system. And so 8%, 1 juror sided for us. that makes sense to me logically, in that represents the population that is awake to what is going on. The
Scott,
one
have
thing,
any,
go
oh,
ahead.
sorry. I was just going to ask you, have there been any interviews after the completion of the trial with any of the jurors? In many cases like this one, which are high profile, some of the jurors will talk to the press. The judges usually advise them not to, but they talk to the press and they say kind of what happened in the deliberations. Are you aware if that's happened at all in this case?
That would be fantastic. I haven't seen that yet.
Okay.
I would really enjoy that type of thing to hear. I'd like to ask them questions,
Yeah.
just objective questions to get a pulse on
Right.
what was the reason.
Yeah.
It's praise God that this trial was live streamed.
Right.
With the New American and CHD pairing with each other to live stream this trial, it was fantastic because we accomplished the goal. At the beginning of the press conference that we had on Saturday, I started with what Grace would say. If Grace was here right now, what would she have said that morning, Friday morning, with the press conference? And she would have said, "God did it, Dad." And boy, did he ever. I mean, to have a trial like this live streamed to the nation, millions of people saw it. Millions of people's lives will be saved if they have ears to hear, because they saw for the first time what's going on behind the curtain. Think through this fact, and I'm putting fact in quotes. I mean, they hired experts from Johns Hopkins. These people are cutting edge in where our society is going with AI and turning everything over to the medical industrial complex. So these experts said specifically that a doctor in a hospital setting can put a DNR on a patient without a witness and without a signature unilaterally. And so the jury accepted that, Mary. So that becomes, it's hard to grasp.
Scott. It's hard for those of us who followed this to grasp how the jury could have come to the conclusion that it is acceptable for a doctor to put a DNR on a patient when the parents and the sister are immediately available. It honestly, Scott, it shocks my conscience. It really does. It's shocking to me how the jury reached this conclusion based on this really outstanding set of facts that were presented in front of them and really competent counsel. I can't quite grasp it, to be honest with you. But you're right that maybe the bigger win is in terms of public opinion and having live streamed it. You're right that millions of people will see sections of this through social media or will come to New American or Children's Health Defense TV and see the whole thing and understand that the system is just extraordinarily broken.
The clip that's up right now is Dr. Burdine, and he really laid it out. I mean, Dr. Burdine, this was the first plaintiff's case he ever testified in. He had always worked for the defendant in the past. He did not take a nickel personally. He bills through Texas, the Texas Tech University, where he works. So the invoices that I received were through that organization. He doesn't take anything personally. And he also chose that his $350 an hour billing rate, when he would be working on the case full days, he would just charge $350 a day. So he would only charge for 1 hour, even though he's working a whole day on the case. And he said bluntly at the trial, it was the most powerful piece of the trial, in my opinion. He said that when Dr. Shokar gave Grace morphine, when she didn't have a pulse or a blood pressure, was the single most egregious act that he's ever seen in 46 years of experience.
Scott, I saw that and I posted that to my social media account. It's extraordinary that that doctor had never testified on behalf of a plaintiff against the medical system ever, and did so and basically said what occurred was egregious beyond anything he'd ever seen. So it's so hard for me to get my head around how the jury really didn't heed that this was absolutely egregious practice. This was not medicine. I'm hopeful you will get to hear from some of the jurors after the fact, because I think it is important to understand what was going through their heads.
Well, I agree. It would be neat. I mean, I'd love to have them on my podcast. We could get them on CHD. I mean, it would be fantastic. I'd love to have that happen in a public forum so that we could just ask open questions.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that happened, I thought, the judge, I thought he did a great job. His sense of humor was really neat in the trial. But the one thing that he did, which, you asked me, how could the jury have come to this conclusion? As you are well aware, there's a lot of pretrial motions, and I'll call them pretrial shenanigans. And one of those pretrial motions are motions in limine. And in motions in limine, what you're doing is you're narrowing the case so that evidence that's not related to the case doesn't come into the trial. And in our case, we only filed motions in limine relative to the things that I've been researching post-trial. So when I walked into that hospital with Grace, obviously I was not awake. If I was, I would have never taken Grace to the hospital because she was not short of breath. We were fixated on the pulse oximeter, and that's why I took her to the hospital. But if I would have been awake, Grace would be alive today. So the things that I have researched, I mean, I've become a full-time researcher and advocate in public speaking since Grace's death. I have 4,000 hours of research. So what we wanted to do is to not have that research come into the trial. During my depositions, of course, they pounded those, they attempted to pound me with me sharing the research, which I did. I just openly shared it with them during depositions. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, the judge did not entertain our motions in limine to not have that stuff come into trial. So it did come into trial. Mm-hmm. And did that influence the jury? It probably did, because the jury, to the extent that they're not awake, they're not going to understand that we only have 4.2% of the world's population, but consume 45% of the world's pharmaceuticals, 5 billion prescriptions a year. We're a country that's hooked on big pharma. Yeah. They do not understand that hospitals have become state actors. Yeah. All this stuff came into the trial. It came into the trial about the incentives that the government had during COVID for ventilators, tocilizumab, remdesivir. All that came into the trial. And even though I presented it objectively, this was the first time I believe many of those jurors had heard any of this. So I think that was part of it.
Yeah. Scott, what's next? What's next for you and the legal team on Grace's case, or just in general, not necessarily the legal team? What's next? Because you've been so devoted to Grace and to her memory and to educating the public. What's next?
Well, that's the $1 million question. I get asked that all the time. I mean, I already know what's next unless God opens a different door. We're not going to be appealing. Yeah.
Sure. I'm so sorry. We seem to have lost the transmission for Scott Schara. Or is he back?
Well, did you?
Oh, great. Yes. So we lost you, but what's next, Scott?
Okay. So what's next? That question gets asked regularly. I mean, and to be blunt, there's no reason to appeal. We accomplished the goal that was set out with the trial. And that was, we publicly, I've said many times, the goal of the trial was repentance. It was to rebuke evil and, get this trial live streamed. So, I mean, those with ears to hear, we did what God called us to do. So what's next is I'm going to pick back up. I took about 3 months off. The last 3 months, not literally off, but I've been working approximately 15 hours a day with the legal team for the last 3 months. So I haven't done many interviews, and I put all of my research on hold. So what I was working on when I took the 3 months off was how to escape Babylon. We are in a Babylonian system, and I had just recorded the physical escape, and now I'm working on the spiritual escape. That's what I stopped working on. So that's what I'll pick up on. I see, my research is much bigger than what people connect the dots. They're looking, unfortunately, just at the lawsuit. But
Yeah.
if you zoom out, the hospitals have become state actors.
Yeah.
Okay, so now zoom out from that. How did that happen? Well, it happened through CMS controlling standards of care. Well, how did that happen? Well, when Medicaid and Medicare was passed in 1965, the idea was we are going to give free health care to the disabled and the elderly. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. That was all by design to set up the ration care model. And the elderly and the disabled are the first to go in this ration care model under the lie of the need for a balanced budget. So we've got a ration care. These non-contributing members of society don't deserve medical care. That's all embedded in the culture of collectivism that is going on literally right now. And what the jury doesn't understand is every single one of the people on the jury is either going to be disabled or elderly someday. And that's what I'm fighting for, is to expose this evil to the population.
Scott, thank you so much. Our hearts go out to Grace and to you, and we are so grateful for all that you've done and for bringing this trial to public attention and allowing CHD to cover it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary. God bless you.
God bless. So now we'll go on to the interview with Reiner Fuellmich's attorney, Katja Vermeer, and interpreter Masha Oral. Thank you.
There's a bigger agenda driving this, and this agenda is about life and death. Only if people understand how serious it is, these people are trying to literally kill us.
So we've just heard Mary Holland, president of Children's Health Defense, speak a powerful, rousing speech. The crowd here in Nuremberg responding to her, and of course her perspective as a lawyer on the human rights aspect of Nuremberg Code and what it means for us during this episode and what we're experiencing right now during COVID-19. She closed with very powerful words, "We can do it." And of course the crowd all responding. And one of those people to whom the crowds also respond is lawyer Reiner Fuellmich, certainly no stranger to the health freedom movement around the world. Reiner, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thank you for giving me the opportunity. It's a pleasure.
So tell us, Reiner, why are you here today and what is the significance of Nuremberg 75?
Well, that's actually the reason why I'm here. It's the 75th anniversary of the Nuremberg Code, not the trials. And that is exactly the platform on which we need to fight this fight, on which we need to win this battle and the war. And I think this is what's happening. Just as Mary said, we are winning. We have been winning for the last 2.5 years. But this is what everyone needs to understand. There are two really important outcomes of the Nuremberg trials. One is informed consent, because no one must be forced to get these injections, which we don't even know what it is. They're not really vaccines. And the other very important outcome is that the defense of "I was just following orders" is not a valid one. So based on these two aspects or major outcomes, in my view, of the Nuremberg trials, we will go into battle.
Absolutely. And so one of the principles you spoke about of informed consent is the law in all of our countries. We learn it as lawyers, doctors learn it as doctors. And despite that, there's been this violation of informed consent by both doctors and both lawyers. How can we help them find their way back to living what informed consent is?
I think the only way is to get all of the really relevant information out. They must understand that this is not just about the proportionality of the measures. This is not just about, is it constitutional or unconstitutional? Quite obviously it's not. But they must understand that there's a bigger agenda driving this, and this agenda is about life and death. Only if people understand how serious it is about their lives and death. Only if they understand that will they make the right choices. Up until then, they'll talk about fringe issues. They will not ever address the core issue. And the core issue that there are a few people out there who are using millions of other people who they bribe or who they put under pressure or they promise them a career or something. These people are trying to literally kill us.
Good morning, Children's Health Defense, wherever you are. I am so happy to have two very important guests with us today. Katja Vermeer, an attorney based in Germany who is representing Reiner Fuellmich, who has been a friend to Children's Health Defense and an important figure in the battle against COVID and all that happened with it, and Masha Orel, who will be interpreting for us today, and she is representing We for Humanity. Welcome, ladies. How are you today? I hope well.
Welcome.
So we want to talk
Thank you.
particularly about Reiner Fuellmich, who is now serving a criminal sentence in a German prison. Katja, perhaps you would start and tell us what were the charges against Reiner Fuellmich and what was the sentence for him to be in prison?
In diesem ersten Prozess war Reiner Fuellmich angeklagt wegen 2 Darlehen.
In the first proceedings, it was about 2 credits in there, which amount to 700,000 euros.
Okay, and how long has he been sentenced to jail for?
It was he sentenced to 3 years and 9 months.
Okay,
And 5 months of the time he so far spent in the prison are not accounted for.
okay. So he spent, correct me if I'm wrong, that he was arrested when he was traveling back from Mexico to Germany, and he was put in prison, and he was there for over a year, considerably over a year, and that's not counting towards his sentence. And it was this stealing $700,000 from his group, Corona, the name of the committee, the Coronavirus Investigation Committee. Is that correct?
Ist entführt worden aus Mexiko. War nicht auf dem
I translate quite brief. So he was not on his way to Germany. He was just kind of abducted under wrong pretext. And they don't blame him of theft, but rather of embezzlement.
Okay. Okay.
And Katya is not sure if there is something like this in the U.S.
Yes. Embezzlement is a crime in the United States. Okay, and so he's been sentenced to, and am I correct, Masha, that he was already in jail for about a year and a half? Is that right?
By today, these are exactly 20 months that he's been in imprisonment.
Okay. And tell us about his conditions in prison. What have been the conditions for his imprisonment so far?
und ist jetzt in einem Gefängnis, wo es ihm besser geht. Darf jetzt mit allen
Of all sudden, Reiner was moved from the prison where he's been so far to a different one, and now he's enjoying in much better conditions, meaning he's allowed to talk to the other people in the prison, and he is more free to call his wife, for example. All of this was not given in their prison where he was kept prior to indictment. Okay. So he was not allowed to talk to other people in prison, and he had really limited possibilities to at least communicate with his wife.
Wow. Is this sentence of 3 years plus, is this characteristic of sentences for embezzlement? Is this a typical kind of a sentence from the court?
Also nicht für einen Ersttäter. Reiner Fuellmich wäre ja hier quasi Ersttäter. Da hätte man
No, it is not rather typical, at least not for the first offender, which Reiner is. For the first offender, it should have been much less. And usually in the case like this, they would actually suspend on probation, which has not happened this time. It's rather harsh.
Yes.
He should have embezzled many millions.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, the sentences are not that harsh.
Okay. So, Katya, as his attorney, why do you believe he was held in such harsh conditions pre-trial, and why is his sentence so long?
Aus der Akte ergibt sich, dass es hier auch um Corona geht. Die Strafakten.
It is clear from inside into the altogether 13 folders the court has got, that it's about corona. So they refer to the corona as matter. And it is also not typical. In this case, it's just economic offense. So it's not really typical that state security was involved. It's not really typical for a pure economic offense that the defender is being led to and from the court handcuffed at hands and feet. So it is obvious that political motivation is behind these proceedings.
Katja, do you consider Reiner Fuellmich to be a political prisoner in Germany today?
Ja, auf jeden Fall. Also wir haben die Fälle mit den Ärzten, die hier nach wie vor verfolgt werden.
Katja says, yes, absolutely, out of doubt. He is a political prisoner. There are, for example, doctors, medical doctors, who are still persecuted for exemption, max exemption, or vaccination exemption. Today, still, some of dissidents are in prison, the same as Reiner is. And the time which Reiner spent in the prison so far and the conditions were absolutely disproportionate, measured at what are their crimes he committed or not committed.
So do you imagine, Katja, that the German government is trying to send a message with this harsh treatment of Reiner Fuellmich? And if it is trying to send a message, what is that message?
Ja, natürlich wollen sie ein Zeichen setzen. Sie wollen
Yes, absolutely. They are trying to send a message. And the message is basically punish one to educate thousands. The people who were criticizing all of these corona measures, they were denigrated, they were called idiots and other names. Reiner, on his end, he showed the unlawful activities by the government. And this is, of course, another purpose behind these proceedings, to stifle him and to show others that they should not expose government as a criminal.
It is easy to set people into panic by creating a virus or by creating the illusion of there being a dangerous virus out there, because everyone is concerned about their health, obviously. So they're using this as their major crowbar, the World Health Organization. And right now it looks as though through the World Health Organization's international health regulations, they're trying to overrule our national constitutions and our national laws. All 194, I believe, member states of the World Health Organization will then be ruled by the World Health Organization or by the World Economic Forum, or rather by the people who are pulling their strings. If this is not about health, what is their goal? Well, the ultimate goal is, it's all out there in the open. You can read up on this in the Great Reset, which was written by Klaus Schwab, or you can listen to the interviews that this aforementioned Harari did. What they really want is complete control of the world. Not just of animals and plants, but also of humans. This may sound like it's, I've watched too many James Bond movies, but unfortunately it's the truth. And, you know, it's all out there in the open. What they really want is, they want to have us agree to two things: to a one world government under the UN, which they own, the World Economic Forum, and they want us to agree to a one world digital currency along the lines of the Chinese social credit system, which they own. One bank, one digital currency. If you don't behave, you're not going to get any money. You're not going to get any access to anything. Those are the goals. Ultimately, they want to control the world. And in order to get there, they need to create as much chaos as possible, and they need to keep us in a constant mode of fear and panic. Number one, the corona crisis. Number two, And it's still, the corona crisis is not over. It's not over. And even though in some parts of the world it seems like it's over, but they're still working on this behind the scenes. They may come up with something new, another virus. I don't think so. I think the next thing they're going to do is they're going to say, oh, we just realized that HIV is back. Why? Well, because one of the side effects, one of the adverse effects of most of the vaccines, in particular the mRNA vaccines, is that they destroy your immune system. And all of a sudden, you have an autoimmune deficiency problem. Your immune system turns against your own body. And this is what happened with AIDS, or at least they claim that this is what happened with AIDS back then. There's still a discussion about whether or not AIDS was caused by HIV. Judy Mikovits says no. She sees the parallels between what's happening now with Fauci et al. And what happened then with Fauci et al. So we believe that the next big thing they're going to pull out of the hat is a new crisis, a new, what they claim, viral crisis, HIV, in order to distract our attention from the adverse effects of the vaccine, because that's what the mRNA vaccines cause. They destroy your immune system. After the third shot or so, you have probably less than 30% of your immune system.
How is Reiner doing now in prison? How is his health? How is his physical health? How is his mental health?
Kämpferisch, ist sehr stark und motiviert sich immer sehr und ist positiv.
Reiner is combative, strong. He's a fighter. He's got very strong character. And now that he is allowed to communicate with the co-prisoners, he can also engage and help people, which is, of course, good for him. But nevertheless, he's surely traumatized. 20 months in prison, it's not nothing.
Sure.
They take their tribute.
Does he have support of a health freedom movement in Germany or in Europe? Are people concerned about his imprisonment and about what this means for criminalizing information and exposing the government?
Ja, also hat sehr viel Unterstützung. Kriegt unheimlich viel Post.
Yes, Reiner is enjoying support. He receives up to 100 letters per day, and he is trying to answer all of these messages. This kind of support is what keeps him going. People write, people inform him about what is going on in the world, and he is interested in knowing this. And there are various actions. For example, an organization named, translated, Lawyers for Enlightenment, sent an open letter. Alternative press is there to report. Bitte TV, Bitte TV reports weekly about what's going on in the proceedings against Reiner Fuellmich. So yes, he does have support in alternative media, in opposition, but the mainstream, of course, either does not report or report in a specific way to belittle him.
Yeah. Is it possible for Reiner to get out of prison before the end of this sentence? In the United States, often sentences are commuted for good behavior and people can be released sometimes in as little as a half of the prescribed sentence. Is that possible for Reiner?
Das ist grundsätzlich möglich, natürlich, auch in Deutschland. Hier ist es allerdings.
In principle, this is also possible in Germany. But in this case, many things are just different than usually. Investigative detention, 5 months of investigative detention, were not taken into account. This is unusual. Usually the time he spent so far in prison prior to the sentencing should be taken in account. This would be a normal procedure. This didn't happen. And And they explain it by saying he did not show any remorse, no regrets, no excuses. And he also insulted. He was very harsh towards the judge, towards the state prosecutor, because he felt that it was unjust what was done to him. And they said this is what this is the reason for this harsh sentence and for not taking into account the time he spent in prison so far. He says he is not guilty, he is innocent. And Katya says, in her eyes, in her opinion, he is innocent.
Again, this, of course, is even more true if the German intelligence service uses agents to make them, the agents, commit crimes in order to blame these crimes on others, or use these crimes to file criminal complaints against others. And this is precisely what happened here in my case. The government's agents, having been granted full immunity by the government, stole my money in order to be able to file a criminal complaint against me in which they accused me of having taken out a loan which I never paid back. Well, obviously I never paid it back because they stole my money. At any rate, Schindler downplays the measures, the white torture stuff, including solitary confinement, stating that this was normal procedure for pretrial detention. He doesn't even mention the story about my mother. And, of course, he says that the defense lawyers lied about being threatened and attacked by the government's agents, completely disregards the evidence we showed in court proving that it was the government's agents, you know, the guys who filed the criminal complaint, who are behind the threats, including death threats, hiding behind fake identities.
What would you like? Are there any websites first where we could learn more about the trial, find out how Reiner is doing, but also what would you like our viewers to know or to do about this situation?
Da es im Moment so aussieht, dass in Deutschland in der Rechtsprechung
Since in Germany, the jurisdiction of the courts, in the jurisdiction of the courts, if it comes to the corona investigators, educators, then there are little chances of being treated fairly. And for this reason, what can really help is international public attention, pressure. This could maybe even help to get justice for Reiner, maybe to get him earlier from the prison. If I'm allowed to say something from me, I'm just interpreter today, but still, if I may.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
For me, it's very important. I'm aware that just in this moment, people out there who are watching, who are listening, they're divided. Reiner divided even the opposition. There are people who say he took money. There are people who say he is innocent. But I think we should unite on the following condition. Either he took money or he did not, would just result into the following fact, that these proceedings are either purely political or are being misused for political purposes. And this must not happen. There is no punishment for what crime ever to make a man strip naked without any relevant reason. It is not a legal punishment not to allow a man to say goodbye to his dying mother. He was permitted to go there and to say goodbye, but just accompanied by the security guards and shackled at the hands and feet. This is something he obviously couldn't do to his dying mother. I could go on, but this is what it is about. It is even not about the person. This special person is known, acknowledged, famous, and gives us the opportunity to catch the attention for the fact that there are political prisoners all around the world, and it must not be. It does not belong to democracy, it belongs to fascism. And this is what this case is representative about. I also ask people to remember the name of Johanna Findeisen. Her situation is outrageous. Her great uncle was political prisoner during Holocaust. He survived several concentration camps, and Johanna is being treated just in the same way as Reiner Fuellmich is being treated, something that the human rights defenders qualify as being white torture. Torture which does not leave some marks and scars on the skin, not visible wounds, but on the soul, on the psyche. These are just kind of wounds which do not heal easily. So I just would like to ask people to be allowed to say no to the political imprisonment, to say no altogether to the torture. And these two names are just the opening. Reiner Fuellmich and Johanna Findeisen as representative for the injustice and actually, from my point of view, fascistic methods of persecution.
Thank you, Masha. And the film that Children's Health Defense sponsored by Vera Sharav, Never Again Is Now Global, features a segment with Johanna, so we can connect that to this film. But please do provide to us any websites that people could go to about the political situation in Germany, and specifically about Reiner Fuellmich and Johanna. I can't catch her last name, but
Findeisen.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
War jetzt nicht ganz klar war, ob Reiner Fuellmich hier schuldig sein könnte oder nicht.
Katja would like to add something which is really a blatant fact which should be known. The money we are talking about, the money which actually brought Reiner into the prison for 3 years and 9 months, is in the account of one of their compliants. Reiner sold his home for over 1 million, 1,300,000 something, Katja, help me, 375,000 euros. And the money from this, from selling the house, somehow is now in the bank account of one of the complainants. And so this money is available. And the purpose Reiner had while selling the house is really to pay back his debts. So the court just needs to take this money, but they don't do, and they even don't take it into consideration, which is a strange thing. So whatever is the situation about this money, if he took it or didn't take it, it is there, available. So it is important that people know this. Reiner got like about 125,000 from selling his home, and the remaining amount is in the account of one of the 3, I think, colleagues who actually filed the criminal complaint against Reiner.
Anything else that I think, Katja, thank you for those facts. Anything else before we close?
Yeah, just 2 things. To remind that Katja and other defenders are being kind of persecuted in a private way. There is channel where they get threats, death threats, and so on. And to me, the absolute ultimate result of this conversation would be to get at some point the special rapporteur to report on the torture in German prisons and as such perhaps in the prison all over the world where there are political prisoners are involved. And we would like very much to have an independent observer from the US Embassy in the proceedings, in the court room for Johanna, Reiner, and, well...
Are the proceedings continuing?
Yes, we would like that.
Are the proceedings for Reiner or Johanna continuing?
Yes, the proceedings for Johanna plan. Just imagine they've got plan to go on with her in 2026. So she's got a long way to go. And what they blame her of is high treasure, meaning 10 years or lifelong. And all she did was shaking hands with a Russian diplomat, I think he was, because it was a day on which 49 Russian children died in a huge plane accident over Germany. So she condolated and shook hands with a Russian.
Wow.
This is more or less it. There is nothing, not one proof that she did anything unlawful. So it's going on. The Reiner court hearings will start over again, and Johanna's court hearings find place right now. I don't mean in this moment, but regularly.
Ein zweites Verfahren geben für diese monatlichen Zahlungen. Nochmal.
Reiner is now confronted with a second persecution, proceedings regarding monthly payments. Katja, was für monatliche Zahlungen? Kannst du da ein bisschen näher erklären? I asked Katja to elaborate a bit what kind of monthly payment this is about.
Die Kanzlei Fuellmich hat damals die Kommunikationsarbeit mit den
this month's payment, what is it about? Back then, during the Corona Committee was working and delivering every other day, every week, new reports. They've been interviewing people. They've been receiving many emails, many reports, phone calls, and so on. It was impossible to work through it without any support. So Reiner got money to pay people to proceed communication. So these are monthly payments for communication support. I think it's fair to put it this way. And Reiner has been blamed that they didn't do anything for this money. So these monthly payments were not justified by any labor. So if they filed now revision, which is formally to do in written, if they get through with this, then the first proceeding will be renegotiated again. And for the second reason, this monthly payment is another more court case which will be heard. And I forgot, Katja filed. You filed in UN with which, Katja? It was too much text.
We filed a proceeding at the UN at the special working group for arbitrary detention, which also worked for the case of Julian Assange.
Yes.
We hope they will do for Reiner too.
Yes. Well, thank you both so much for giving us an update on this case of Reiner Fuellmich, who did do some very important work around coronavirus investigations and has been a friend to Children's Health Defense. And I look forward to staying in touch and learning more as things proceed. And I hope that we will be able to include link addresses where people can go to learn more. Thank you both so much, Katja and Masha.
Mary, thank you for this chance to talk to the world. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
I'm still standing, and nothing will change that, because I am convinced that right now, in all this chaos that seems to be consuming this planet, we, and I in particular, need to stay calm and focused and realize that almost all of this chaos is staged and just an illusion to put us in panic mode. This is psychological warfare. I've said this many times before. And we, the humans, the real humans on this side of the fence, know and sense this. And we know that we'll need to take responsibility for our own lives very, very soon, as the crash is now imminent. It will be up to us to bring the monsters to justice, and that we will do. Let us finish the job. We can and must do it, I believe. Once again, I want to thank you all for your incredible and incredibly moving support. I will keep calm and focused, and I'll do my best to strike back when the time is right. That, I think, is very soon. There's a song by Otis Redding that puts me in the right mood, and that is Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. And there's another song by a group called Empire of the Sun, I think it's a one-hit wonder, whose title is We Are the People. That reminds us who's the boss. I'll see you all soon.
Good morning, CHD, and welcome to the Mothers to Be segment, where we cover all things preconception, conception, and through pregnancy and the first year of life. And my pregnancy, I only have one child, but my pregnancy was actually really awesome. And the health of my partner, I believe, had a really big impact on that, right? He doesn't drink any alcohol, caffeine, doesn't smoke, eats very healthy, lots of whole foods, and has a really active lifestyle. And I had a pretty breezy pregnancy. And so, you know, that's a big theme that comes up very often is, what is the impact of the father on the mother's pregnancy? And we're learning more about this every day in the scientific world. And so I'm going to bring on someone who I think is the perfect person to talk about it with. His name is Dr. Patrick Flynn. He's a chiropractor. And yeah, we want to bring you on the show. Thanks for being here.
I appreciate it. Love being with you guys.
Yeah, so let's just crack right in. Let's talk about preconception, right? So when it comes to conception itself, what are the effects that the father's health has on the pregnancy?
When a couple comes in, usually diagnosed with infertility or having problems, everybody focuses on the woman. And you know, statistically, about 50% of the problem when it comes to fertility is actually on the male side. It really is. They just think because they can produce sperm that everything is great. Well, sperm has multiple factors, just from count, motility, morphology, if there's any DNA fragmentation. Now, what does it all mean? That's all things that can be controlled by the lifestyle. And so lifestyle factors have a big thing in it. I didn't realize this was gonna be such a big video. I did a video, and I apologize, I just wanted to use the words I used. I said, men, you need to ice your balls, okay? Because there is a reason why that people do not realize this, that once again, heat can affect, you know, the not only sperm count, but it can affect morphology and motility. And so I said, just put some ice on your balls. And guess what happens is it got hundreds of millions of views, and I had people reach out to me and they realized, and there's things that do happen. So we got to make sure that we're always worried about egg quality. We need to worry about sperm quality, and that's where lifestyle factors so affect this.
I would like to actually touch on saunas. I've heard that saunas can actually have an impact on whether or not you're conceiving properly. So let's dig in on the science about that.
Absolutely. So in general, once again, in general, saunas have a major health benefit, right. But excessively, and remember, I want you to think of this, and obviously this is a funny subject because we're talking about male anatomy, but you know, it's always like, you know, if everything shrivels up, they're like, it's really cold out. Well, of course, because there is a difference in temperature from the testicles from the rest of the body. And so therefore, once again, having high heat excessively, so when I see guys sitting in almost like on a daily basis, I'm like, okay, you might be trying to change some good cardiovascular things in that, but if you're in the conception years, be cautious, because that excessive heat does raise body temperatures, and it affects spermatogenesis, okay, the development of the sperm. So therefore, be careful. Be careful taking this laptop and putting it on your lap. Just from even, once again, people don't realize this, there's going to be some heat that's going to transfer there. There's so many things that we got to be careful that way, and that's what I said. So when everybody was just doing the most simple things, I'm like, hey, guess what? Don't put it, you know, directly skin to skin, but take a cold pack, set it on your lap that way, and keep that temperature a little bit cooler so you have more normal spermatogenesis.
And if a couple is trying to conceive and, or having trouble, what are some of the top things you're going to tell that the man to do versus just the woman?
Well, you said it already. I said, look at basic lifestyle things: sleep, movement, don't smoke. Alcohol, guys, alcohol, fellas, is significant. Medications, radiation. You got to make sure that you have normal testosterone levels. We always hear right now that testosterone levels are all-time low, which I can't agree with it. I have a little different perspective of why it's low. But the idea is this: is good testosterone levels are very important. And do you understand that even disrupted sleep for several days in a row can significantly drop testosterone levels? So we just need to get back to the most simple things. People are thinking like, I got to go out and do all these major things to get on TRT and do other things. No, guess what happens? Your body can produce testosterone at a very significant rate if those things are good. Now, and also protein. A lot of guys, you'd be surprised. People think that men eat a lot of protein. A lot of them are deficient in it. They're way too high on sugars. Sugars are a big contributor, okay? Then they go too much trans fats and everything. You got to make sure you have enough zinc. And that's why when people go for proteins, you do have a better aspect of spermatogenesis. You have better motility, better morphology, less chance of oxidative stress. And those factors really contribute to you having, I call it the Michael Phelps of sperm.
We, I think, so often look at just women and especially the IVF industry and tries to, blame some of these things on her. And whenever we dive into the health of the father, I feel like we can really start addressing that going forward. And that's something we do at Mothers to Be. We have a free resource on the website that kind of helps dads go a little bit further. But I think the advice you're giving is definitely where to start. So once a woman is actually pregnant, I've heard before that like her placenta, like the DNA is from the father. Can we talk a little bit about like her health and maybe different issues like preeclampsia or what can we see that might be an issue if the father's health isn't doing great?
Well, multiple things. And let's even start from this. During pregnancy, I've always told men, anything a woman says to you during she's pregnant, she gets a free pass. Hormones are going everywhere. Things are crazy. It's good, okay? I remember, I've been married for 24 years. I have 4 beautiful daughters. All of our children are born at home. They've never had one vaccine. I mean, we've done everything by the book, okay? And by the good book, ours, okay? But the idea is this, is an environment for a woman is so important. A man can get away with a lot of things as far as the stress of their body, and they can. And that's why it seems like men seem to have a little less health issues when it comes to these things. When it comes to women, I personally believe that men's job, the number one thing a man could do for a woman's health during pregnancy is keep the environment of stress very low for a woman. Because that mental stress dynamically changes. The fight or flight response, the cortisol response, the adrenaline response changes. Actually, it can even change the baby itself, because high fight or flight has even been shown that when babies are born, they have more high, fast twitch muscles, okay? Because they're basically born in fight or flight. So therefore, the environment in which a woman is pregnant is so key, especially during the first trimester, because you don't want to lose any hormone. So men's health, it's got to be very good mentally. It's got to be very good physically, because then they can protect and provide and do everything for the woman during the time of where she really needs the rest. I know we're in a world of where women are go, 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 go. I'm like, ladies, even a healthy pregnancy is extremely taxing on your body, extremely taxing, okay? You are having tissues grow that only grow during certain times. You're having hormone levels that are only at certain levels during when you're pregnant. You're having the immune system change dramatically. That's why, for example, there's certain suppression of certain immune cells that allow you to get allergies and other things during the time. And so therefore, any huge stress environment for a woman just really puts you and even puts that baby in harm's way.
Yeah, I actually was on the CHD bus whenever traveling the country doing interviews about the COVID hospital protocol deaths when I got pregnant. And like you said, even though I had a healthy pregnancy, the stress, I mean, it could be very, very exhausting. I mean, you're growing a human from scratch, which is insane. Yeah. What are some tips you have maybe if a woman has, because I've actually heard that some of the father's sperm health has to do with if a woman experiences more intense morning sickness. Have you heard anything about that or know anything about that?
Well, here, think of it this way. Like I always say, ladies, sex during pregnancy is great, okay? But let me explain why, okay? because the prostaglandins within a woman, or when delivered to a woman, are very relaxing for many parts of their body. Okay. And that's why if you ever look, I tell men, I said, women should basically use you like a piece of meat towards the last, especially trimester they're pregnant, because it's very relaxing for the uterus. It's very relaxing for a female body. Ladies, you're gonna love this. If a guy can bring you to the top of the mountain when you actually during sex, guess what happens? The oxytocin, the other hormones released during the process are actually, not only they are very, beneficial for one's body, but they're very calming for all aspects of life, from her brain to her stomach to her uterus, everything.
Yeah, I actually, one of the documentaries that I was watching lots of stuff when I got pregnant, and one of those was, I think it was called Orgasmic Birth, which sounds really crazy from the start of it, but really it just has all to do with, the law of hormones and its effect on when we're giving birth and the outcomes during birth. And so,
well, I want to say something really quick on that. Isn't it funny that when you read or actually learned about something that isn't standard medical birth, and they treat it like a disease and treat it like you're basically have the plague and acting like birth is horrible, that all of a sudden you start reading that there could be some very good experiences and very good things if it's done right. But the way that pregnancy from the start, it's really interesting because, I always watch when women go to doctors and say, when should I start doing the good things for my body? Oh, about 3 months before you decide to get pregnant. Really? Do you understand that your egg quality even has to do with what your mother did? Okay, your egg quality as a child, okay, and stuff. And so therefore what happens is there's so many things that can be done that seem so out there until you sit to put one or two together and go, this is just some basic biochemistry. This is just some basic physiology. And so when we have a different perspective coming at this, it gives women a better experience, and they don't go through some of the things. Because if you look at the infant mortality rate for child survival in the United States, we rank pretty low, considered all the technology that we do have, because we're giving women, you ever think this way, when women get pregnant and all of a sudden they're excited, and then all of a sudden what a lot of women do, start telling them all the horror stories of their birth. Well, where'd you have the baby? Hospital. What'd you do? These things. Okay, I delivered on my back, and all these things, and don't realize that done very differently and done the way nature's intended to do that way. No joke, all 4 of my girls were born at home. They're born at home. Okay, baby came out. Heck, no joke. My second child, Trinity, my wife pushed me at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was sleeping. She's like, honey, I had some contractions. I'm like, go back to bed. So I go back to sleep. And all of a sudden, 10 minutes later, oh, no. So I went and filled the tub up. No joke. Literally, guess what happened? Baby was born. They were back sleeping in bed. I was cleaning up the tub at 3 a.m. You see, and then they were sleeping by 3 a.m. after my wife, gave me a little slap on the shoulder when, she started the contractions. And it's like, and people are going, how is that possible? If preconception, during pregnancy, and then post are done properly, we've been having babies for thousands and thousands of years. It's just that they're so, interfering with all these processes. And then we just read about some normal things and we think it's revolutionary.
There's a lot of different birth classes and different things people can do. As a father, what would you say? You said you guys had 4 home births. For the guys, what do you think is best for the guys to prep for birth?
I think I gave you the greatest advice already. It's not a joke. The greatest thing you can still do for your wonderful woman is the fact that keep her stress down. It's like anything. There's got to be there's got to be a very good environment for a woman to relax, not be in fight or flight. Obviously, for example, when contractions hit, the mom's body goes through some significant changes. And be present. Be present. It really is, because I said we have the easy job. The women have to do the rest. And so therefore, be present for them, because it's even good births are very difficult on a woman's body. So therefore, guys, just be their biggest support in the process, because it's a beautiful experience. It really is. And then if something needs a little extra care that way, you're going to be the biggest support to help her get through it.
Wow, that's very profound. Instead of saying, hey, take this birth class or this thing or that, but truly, yeah, that's all woman needs, is just, for her guy to be present with her and in sync with what she needs. Some people like to be touched, some people don't like to be touched. And if you're paying attention, you should be able to tell. Cameron went and ran and got me a smoothie at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. But tend to your needs. It's really quite an environment. The environment is so important for you.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, is there any final pieces of advice you want to give to a dad who might be conceiving soon, whose wife found out she's pregnant, or maybe just had a baby?
Yes, because of the high infertility rates today, I'm going to encourage all guys. You know, if you want to have kids someday, and let's say even young right now, take care of yourself, honestly, because you don't want to have to come in and no joke and get a sperm analysis test and do all the things that. When this young man, no joke, they took them try it 6 years, and they kept on focusing on the woman and going, there's got to be something wrong with her. No, it ran simple, sperm tests, morphology's down, mortality's down, sperm counts down. They had no idea because he even looked like a healthy 31-year-old man. And after trying for so many years, so number one, take care of yourself, because the mental stress that a woman and a man go through when they can't conceive is very devastating. If you want to really affect a woman negatively, and she really wants a baby and she can't get pregnant, that can mentally really hurt a woman. It really is. You know what I'm saying? Because if there's one amazing special thing that women can bring to the world, it's actually giving us amazing children. I can never thank my wife enough for giving me 4 beautiful daughters. Like I tell people, and having beautiful home births, heck, after a hard poop, I give up after a minute, you know what I'm saying? And she had 4 beautiful girls at home, okay? And then, once again, work together as a couple to actually take care of yourselves. Eat good. You think I'm joking, I'm so big on women and sleep, okay? There's a video that almost got 1 billion views, it's not a joke, is women need more sleep than men, okay? Start doing all these prep things, especially if your wife does get pregnant. Make sure she's getting to bed and getting 8 to 10 hours sleep. I like the 10 hours sleep for women for that aspect, and sometimes even longer, okay? Like I said, it's so much in your control. It really is. It's so much in your control. We think that pregnancy or even post that it's all about doctors, it's all about things. No, you'd be surprised. The most simple things make the conception, the pregnancy, the delivery, and even after is so massively in control if you know what to do.
And that's what I feel like, Mothers to Be, CHD, the Wellness Way, we're all just trying to reach these people and help, because a lot of times it's just, IVF's the answer, or this really negative messaging that there's something wrong with you inherently. Whereas, I feel like we just had a chiropractor on the other day who also talked about how, our bodies are innately okay. They are designed to thrive, and we just hold it back with different environmental issues. So yeah, we're really happy. More about where we can find you on Instagram and your website and all that good stuff.
Yes, as long as I'm not getting kicked off media, which happens on a regular basis. Instagram, TikTok, I'm on like my 5th page already. So just Dr. Patrick Flynn, or my main website is thewellnessway.com. We have offices all over the country. Started with one office in Green Bay 25 years ago and grew to offices all over the US and actually even over in Europe now and stuff. And it's kind of cool because, I have a very unique story that took me from, my undergraduate when I was going for immunology and nutrition to why I went to chiropractic school instead of medical school, or, trying to become an immunologist, because the immune system is my favorite thing. And actually even then my postgraduate stuff that way. And I'll be able to put together just some pretty great things for people to do. And it's obviously caught the attention of many doctors, and it's allowed me to branch Wellness Way offices all over the country.
Thank you so much for joining us. And we look forward to having you on again at CHD TV as always.
It's great always being with you guys. Thank you so much for what you guys do.
My name is Darla Hale.
And this is about your daughter, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Now,
what age did she take her first Gardasil shot?
She had it at age 13.
Now, were you with her when she had it?
I was. I took her to the doctor, to the pediatrician, due to the fact that the school nurse told my 2 children that when they returned from spring break, if they were not caught up on their shots, that they would not be able to return to school. So on that Thursday of spring break, I made an appointment on the following day, which was Friday, the last day I could take them to get their shots before spring break was over. And I took them in, just like I had been always taught to do, was to get my kids shots, and got them, and they gave both my kids 4 shots apiece.
And they both got the HPV Gardasil that day?
Yes.
And this is talking about the older child, right?
Mary Morgan is my baby. She's 19.
Okay. 19 now, but at the time was 13.
She was 13, correct.
And she's the one that had the reaction.
Yes.
So talk us through what happened.
We went home after the shot. On the way home from the doctor, like every day, I talked to my best friend and I told her that I had just taken my kids to the doctor to get their shots and that the school nurse had said I had to hurry, get them their shots before they could return to school. And she said, what shots did they get? And I told her, and she silently bawled me out, more or less. And so she said, well, the girl you took in to get the shots, the children you took in to get the shots, she said, remember who they were. Look for signs. She said, if anything changes, just remember that. And so I was just panicking inside, wondering, thinking maybe she's wrong. Hopefully she's wrong. And so a year after the shots, that whole year, my daughter...
Did you have more HPV shots?
No. No, she scared me so bad that I never, from that point on, my children have never had any more shots. But a year later, Mary Morgan started episodes where she would roll her eyes back. She would look at me, and it was like she was looking through me. As 13-year-olds do, I thought she was rolling her eyes at me. When I would tell her to do something, and I was pretty firm, and would tell her to clean her room, you have 30 minutes to clean your room, and I would be in it, and she would just roll her eyes at me. And so I got to noticing, she would come home from school and say, Mom, my friends are saying that I am not hearing them when they're talking to me, or I'm spacing out. So then I got to noticing that it's more. I didn't tell anybody, not even my husband, and we went on a vacation and had a seizure while we were on vacation, and she had locked herself in the bathroom. She was seated in the toilet, and she fell off the toilet between the toilet and the vanity, and I knew from hearing the pounding of her head on the vanity that a grand mal seizure. We broke into the bathroom, and she continued to have the seizure, and we called 911. Paramedics came, and I prayed out to God that it would never happen again, thinking that it was over, but it's been a long road. Since she was 14, she's 19 now, 5 years of seizures. She has 4 kinds of seizures. I started videoing them because they told me at Vanderbilt that she was having syncope, which is fainting spells. But I argued with them, this is not fainting. It's more than fainting. So I had to start videoing the seizures.
Is she on medication?
She's finally, after she's been on all the medications that they could prescribe her, she's on one that does work. She hasn't had a seizure since June 3rd of 2023.
And how do you know it's the HPV Gardasil when she took 4 shots that day?
She has seen a biomedical doctor, and she's had a series of testing, and it's from the toxins in the shots that have metals in them, and the metals are stored in her brain, and that causes the swelling, and that's what we've determined is the cause.
Describe what that shot has taken away from your daughter's life, what her life is like now.
She did not get her driver's license. She did not get her permit when she was 15. She did not get her driver's license when she was 16. She lost friendships. Nobody wanted to be friends with her. I could go on and on. It's not only taken from her, it's taken from our family. We can't leave her alone. We worry about her. I've had to drive. She's went on vacations with a friend to Florida. I've had to drive to get her because she's had seizures. It's awful.
It affects her mentally as well.
Yes. Yes.
Right. What's your warning to people?
Don't listen to people. Don't listen to people about the shot. listen to yourself. Do what your heart feels is the best thing for your children, no matter what the schools and the doctors tell you.
Right. Thank you so much for telling the story.
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.